I'm Carl King, and this is the Carl King Podcast, where I talk about music, filmmaking, and general creativity stuff. To support this podcast, head over to patreon.com/Carl King and join for just $1 or $5 per month. Or you can join at the Illusionist level of $51 per month. Special thanks to both Hank Howard III and Chubode, who have done exactly that. Quick shout out to my music endorsements: Vienna Symphonic Library, Fractal Audio, Ernie Ball Strings, Toontrack, and Millennium Media. All 5 of those companies make amazing musical gear that I love to use. Now let's prepare to get ready to get started. Very good friends of Carl King, today we're taking a trip back in time. You are about to hear what I call a lost episode. And no, it's unrelated to that television show with the nonsensical ending. What I mean is, this is a special episode that was recorded, but somehow ended up in the data deep freeze. I have several of these, and the good news is, they're just now getting thawed out. If you stick with me, you're really going to like this one. And I think you're going to have a favorite new musician. Real quickly, briefly, carefully, before we get into that, I have a single Carl King news update for you. Remember that Steve Vai interview I did way back in episode 1? Well, if you haven't listened to it, go do so. Anyway, I am happy to announce that GuitarWorld.com featured that episode of the Carl King Podcast on their website this past week. And that was pretty surreal. I'll put the link in the show notes. And now that the Carl King news is officially over, let's all jump up and down and stumble into this week's feature presentation. Has anyone here heard of an insane guitarist named Pete Peterson? Well, I have. 3 years ago, I met up with him to talk about his unusual 7-string guitars, his outrageously creative music, and to ask him why he rode his bicycle 500 miles. That's right, he had, just the day before, finished 5 days of pedaling from San Francisco to Los Angeles. Now that gives you some idea of his intensity and work ethic. So listeners, I want you to brace yourselves. Grab a hold of something with both hands, because I'm about to play you a clip of Pete Peterson's music. This is from a song called Bugs, spelled B-U-G-Z, and it has Travis Orbin on drums. How did they do it? I don't know, but listen to this. You can find out more about Pete's music on his website, petepetersonmusic.com, and on his Bandcamp, so go and get it. Okay, now that you know just what kind of creative madman we're involved with, let's go back to March 2019 and listen. Quick warning, we start off with a lot of technical guitar talk, but hang in there, it gets good. Now let's go. You know, a lot of people have talked into that microphone.
Important people.
Devin Townsend talked into that microphone, I think.
No way.
Yeah.
What an honor.
Yeah.
Hopefully I can live up to the expectations.
I want to ask you why you would ride your bicycle all the way from San Francisco to Los Angeles just to be on a podcast.
Because it was hard.
And you tend to do a lot of things that are hard to do?
Yeah. What's the point of doing easy things?
I guess because there's a greater reward in doing things that are easy.
there's not really any reward at all for riding a bicycle that far. Just lots of pain and not having to pay for gas, I suppose.
Do you listen to music as you're riding your bicycle from San Francisco to Los Angeles? How many miles is that?
It was about 500.
That's it? 500 miles?
Yeah.
Oh, that's not that impressive.
Yeah. Regarding the question at hand, I usually don't listen to music when I'm riding my bicycle, although at one point I was riding over a levee of some sort, so I really had to put on When the Levee Breaks and actually sang along for quite a while. And actually for quite a bit of the ride, I was singing random songs and almost writing stupid tunes along the way.
So you just sing to yourself?
Yeah.
Or do you sing like inside your head?
Oh, no, I'm singing out loud, completely out loud. Actually, I was singing some Queen. What was I singing? Somebody to Love.
You're a guitarist.
Yes, of some sort.
But you also I think you do some singing, right? Don't you sing on your music?
I do sing on my music, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I try to pass off as a vocalist as much as possible.
Let's talk about that polka dot guitar.
So that's my King of the Mountains guitar.
What does that mean?
Well, King of the Mountains is actually a jersey given to someone in the Tour de France for doing really good at climbing up mountains on their bicycle.
See, we're back to the bicycling again. That's interesting.
Yes, I tend to become obsessed with things, and bicycling is, beside music as one of the top obsessions. And I painted a guitar as the King of Mountains.
Wait a minute, you painted that guitar?
I did.
You painted polka dots?
I did. I painted polka dots. Bought the guitar on eBay for about $300. It's a 7-string Jackson. I think it's actually made in Japan, and I have no idea what the model name is. All I know is it has 22 frets, which was the deciding feature. But yeah, it was just plain black.
Hold on now. You said that's the deciding feature, and I'm going to pretend I don't know what you mean by that. But tell me about why you wanted 22 frets instead of 24. For those listening at home, 24 frets on a guitar allow you to go up to the full octave from the open string. You can go up to the 12th. That's 1 octave. Another up to the 24th fret is 2 octaves above the open string. So 22 leaves you a couple of semitones short.
Off of 2 full octaves.
Yeah, you can't quite go 2 octaves. So I prefer the 24 frets, even though I don't ever play that high. It seems cool to be able to go fully double.
It does have a satisfying roundness to the number of frets. However,
yeah, and when I play like a Fender Strat that's just like 22, I get like, something isn't right.
Well, there's something about where that neck pickup is located and the frequency content that it can pick up. If you were to take a Strat and make it 24 frets, even though it has a single coil in the neck, it still wouldn't sound quite like a Strat because it's a little bit closer to the bridge pickup and, well, it's a little bit closer to the bridge, that end of the string. So you lose a little bit of the smoothness and the signature Strat tone. So that is why I sort of only want 22 fret guitars.
And that's a specific thing. Like you had a guitar maybe that was 24 and you were like, damn it, this doesn't sound like a Strat, or you played on a Strat. And you thought, hey, I could have this tone if I had only 22.
Hearing really good Strat tones. Let's see. I guess Stevie Ray Vaughan is a typical example. Like that bluesy, half overdriven Strat neck pickup sounds really good to me. And I mean, you can't really get that on a guitar with a humbucker, but the sound of a humbucker guitar with 22 frets, I think, in my opinion, is better than 24 frets because the pickup is just a little bit further up the neck.
You talk about playing with single coils and humbuckers. I tend to, and I might be a typical person. When I play clean, I play with a single coil, and when I play with distortion, I like a humbucker. Do you find that you like a tone with the single coil with distortion?
I think it depends on the situation, but I can definitely get down with doing fully distorted, very heavy sounds with a single coil. And
really,
I have quite a few times, yeah. I have a 7-string Telecaster and a 7-string Strat. Both have single coils in both positions. And I've used them to do pretty heavy metal type music. The only problem is they're just noisy. So
yes, they are.
You pick up a lot of 60 hertz hum from your electrical wiring in the house.
Yeah, but what about the stacked humbuckers? Have you experimented with that?
I bought a set of stacked single coils one time.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like the vertical humbucker, right?
Yeah.
Is that what we're talking about?
Yep. The stacks. I actually ordered a set of custom shop stacks. I tried to install them, and for some reason I couldn't get them installed properly, so I sent them back, and I just went straight single coils. It's probably just stupidity on my part, but
everyone at home, if you're not a guitar player, you might not find that topic very interesting, but
who doesn't play guitar though?
Everybody plays guitar.
I think
I guess.
Basically everyone does. Yeah.
Everyone does, yeah. And everyone that we've ever met plays guitar. For those listening at home who are not guitarists, the pickups in the guitar act as sort of like in an electric guitar. They're sort of like a little microphone. They don't necessarily work in the same way that a microphone works. You probably know more about this.
Translate a piece of metal moving near the magnet into some type of voltage.
So it's the way that you make your guitar go into an amplifier through the cable. It's sort of it is the counterpart to the microphone.
And it doesn't rely on air shaking around like a microphone does.
It's just the movement of the metal.
Yes.
Interesting.
So it could hypothetically work in space.
Oh.
You couldn't use a microphone in space.
See, I didn't know that. That's useful to know. 7 strings and pickups. Was there a time that you ever had a problem getting a decent 7-string tone, like a low B? Is that what you tuned to?
I tuned to a half step down from there. So
a half step down. So that would be A sharp or B flat.
Yes.
Did you ever have a problem with the pickups getting that sort of low tone?
No, I did notice that my Strat neck pickup does not sound just like a 6-string Strat neck pickup, and that probably has something to do with the fact that the pickup is larger and the guitar is larger, so the tone's not going to be exactly the same. The biggest problem I've had with 7 strings, especially with the 25.5-inch scale ones, is intonation of the lowest string. Or
is that where you end up with that bow, bow kind of thing? Or is it just intonation in general on the frets?
It's on the frets. Like if you try to play a chord or something like that, the note you're playing on the thickest string will be very sensitive. All of the
pressure.
Overtones above that will clash if they're not like perfectly intonated. So it's actually, that's where Elixir strings sort of helped out, because I think they dampen some of the higher overtones of the strings and keep them from clashing with the higher notes in the chords. I've more or less fixed those issues now.
Wait a minute, you fixed the issues?
Yes, I was actually tuning to A for a long time.
Yeah.
And I tuned up a half step to A sharp.
Okay.
That helps some of it. So the lower you try to tune with a shorter scale guitar, the tougher it is to get the intonation right.
Yeah, because the string is going to be looser.
Yes. And you can go to thicker strings, but then, that changes the content of the overtones as well.
Yeah.
So it's trial and error, actually, to get a guitar that will play good chords down in those low registers.
Hey, you know what? It's time for Carl King to interrupt this fascinating interview to play you another clip of Pete Peterson's chaotically ordered musical noise. And this is from his song Rockwell C, and also has Travis Orbin on drums.
Extreme heat, evaporating tears of defeat, could not get up, so got down, sound, melt the ground. Suffer the rain, hot till it out of town. Burn, time is not misspent. It gotta go hard, one hard. Someday this life is going to end. Now it's not a fucking game now.
You and I are in a competition. We have a drummer that is in common, Mr. Travis Orbin, who has played with both of us, and he's sort of our common connection. Currently, you are winning in the competition, and I hope to make some attempt to change that. I hope to eventually win.
I thought you did win.
I mean, well, no, because he told me that you are winning.
See, that's news to me. I mean, I thought the latest record that you guys did together was more complicated than anything I ever threw at him, but I'll take the title if it's mine for now.
My newer record is a lot of theme and variation. The Grand Architects of the Universe, is that what you're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
It's just a lot of theme and variation on simple themes. There's different permutations that come and go, and they intertwine and overlap, and there's some counterpoint. But there's not on a micro scale. Like if you take any 4 bars from that album, they're probably all very easy to play. Right?
I see.
I mean, it's almost entirely 4/4, and there's very little shifting tuplets or anything like that. There's some 5s thrown in here and there. But Travis tells me that you are winning because you've hired him to play music that is way more challenging than the stuff I've hired him to do. So I'm hoping at some point I can reclaim that spot, that important place in life of having challenged Travis Orbin more than anyone else. But I think you currently hold that title. And I think you could probably easily beat me again if we were to starting right now, like, okay, go home and make an album. You might still win.
I might be petty enough to actually simply compose music just for the sake of it being difficult for Travis to play, which is actually kind of the thing that sparked our collaboration from the get-go. He sent me a message on MySpace letting me know that if I ever was up for it, he would be willing to record any of the most quote-unquote inane rhythms possible. So
what does the word inane even mean? If Mike Stone is listening to this, Mike Stone, send me a text. Tell me what inane means. Okay, back to the conversation.
Essentially, being an extremely serious artist, I just threw a bunch of random, very fast drum notes into Cubase I was using at the time.
Oh, okay, Cubase.
I sent it to Travis, and he's like, bad news, man. I think I can't play that at 140 beats per minute. I'm going to have to take it down to 138, or maybe it was 132 or something like that. And he sent me this over text, and I was just like, okay.
See, you already achieved what I hope to someday achieve. Back in the MySpace days, you had already done it.
Get some pushback from Travis.
I want to get to where I write him like 4 songs for an EP. I want to do this album called the Impossible Thrash EP. And I want to write thrash music that is so impossible for him to play that he'll just refuse. And I told him that already. I told him that already. So he could easily just like, haha, I refuse. But he's not that kind of a smartass. Like he would actually try to do it.
I think you set it up perfectly so that if he does refuse, he loses some face.
He loses face by not playing on my Impossible Thrash EP that no one will ever listen to.
It's a question of honor.
It is for him, though. What's with that guy? I was just talking about that with my wife this morning. We were talking about Travis, as we always do. We were talking about self-discipline and things like that because the two of us work from home. So we have to always self-discipline and motivate ourselves to continue working when there's no boss standing over us staring, like when's this going to be done? So we have to plan out our day and execute our daily work plans. And we were talking about Travis and the thought of like, what motivates that guy? Like, why does he want to do what he does? And this obviously isn't a Travis Orbin interview, but you have the same experience of working with him. Do you have some of those observations about working with him?
Yeah, I think he has an important obsessive nature when it comes to doing this, and it's good that he's willing to be so dedicated. I remember the first time I actually ever met him in person was at I think it was a Sky Eats airplane show or something like that, and it was the first time I had ever seen him in person after we recorded Bugs and Idiot Christmas. And
I like that name.
So those are two of the songs that he recorded for me first. So I go and say hi to him. He's in, I think it was in Worcester, Massachusetts. And I figure, oh, hey, I haven't seen this guy in a while. Maybe we'll hang out for a bit. But, he's like, sorry, man, I got to spend half an hour hitting the practice pad first. And I was like, I respect that. It's dedication, and that's what gets results.
It's funny, I had a similar experience. His band Darkest Hour was playing in LA a while back, and I was just in the middle of writing a bunch of cartoon stuff, taking a bunch of writing classes and trying to improve myself in that area. And he came to town, and since he and I text obsessively, him and Mike Stone are like my main text buddies, and Travis was coming to town, so I thought, oh, cool, I'll get to see him and hang out. We'll spend some time fucking around or doing whatever, getting some food. And I didn't check in with him early enough in the day because apparently he has a daily routine that starts at I don't know what time, but he has to go to the venue, sound check, and then he has to work out and practice until the show. And so I drive down to the venue and I get to this shithole underground club in downtown LA somewhere, or Echo Park or Silver Lake or something. And it was absolutely the kind of place I would never go unless I was just trying to go down and say hi to Travis for whatever reason. You would never find me in a place like this. It was like under a bridge, and I started texting him like, hey, you just going to leave me standing out here like a regular dildo or something? And he's like, oh, there's no room back here. And I got to practice. And I got to work out. And I'm like, really? I just drove down here and now you're going to work out? Like, I'm here a few feet away, probably, at least come out or something. But no, he had to work out. So I was like, all right, well, fuck it. Got in the car and drove home.
Oh, man.
After being there probably less than 5 minutes. But the evening turned out well. I got a lot of thinking and writing done on my project. It didn't bother me at all, other than like, oh man, I thought I was going to get to hang out with him a bit because we hung out in the last tour and he ended up staying up at my place. Anyway, it's true. He has this military outlook on it almost.
Yeah. I think you could get into a situation where there's a slippery slope where, just because you like someone enough, you change up your routine a little bit one time, and then you could slide into a place of no discipline and
like me,
be like me too. I mean, recording one song every 6 months or something like that. So I think you need to avoid that, and he's pretty successful at that.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to let up. I think that I've seen myself go through several cycles of depression, and he just keeps at it. He's always over there working out, practicing. He's got to work on legs. It's 2 a.m. and I'm like, what's going on? Just got done working on legs or whatever. like it's
consistency
crazy.
Pays off.
Yeah. What's your situation with that? You do other things other than music. How do you stay motivated and keep doing your thing? I mean, you just rode a bicycle from San Francisco to LA. I can't imagine doing that.
That goes back to being able to become obsessed with things. I think that's what that is. Like, I got a bicycle and slowly but surely got more and more and more into it.
But how is that something you become obsessed with? Because all you're doing is sitting on a seat and moving your legs, right? Or is there something else to it?
No, that's about it. And you're sitting there and you're just in pain for 6 to 8 hours a day. It's called Type 2 fun, which is...
Whoa, okay. I don't know about Type 2 fun.
It's fun that's not fun while you're doing it, but it's fun afterwards, after you've, you make some tiny achievement.
Did you invent Type 2 fun?
No, I think it's a fairly well-known concept in the outdoor exercise type fitness world.
No one has ever told me about it. Is this withheld?
It is a secret society of sorts, the Type 2 fun people.
Like, we're sitting here right now, and there's probably other people around. If you were to walk outside, you could probably, like, give like a little nod, and the other person would be like, type 2 fun.
If you saw
my guy
someone
right there.
with the right footwear, perhaps you could probably tell if they're into type 2 fun or not.
So that guy who was hurting himself riding over the hill today in Burbank and Hollywood, or between Burbank and Hollywood, I said, hey, should we pick that guy up? He was on a bicycle. And you said, no, he's having fun. He's probably having fun right now.
He was probably having
You meant
type
2 fun.
Probably, although he was on a mountain bike, which I think mountain bikes are usually used for type 1 fun. Excitement in the moment, not necessarily pure suffering that you feel better about after the fact.
Now, can you tell me what type of fun? Is there type 3 fun, first of all?
Not that I know of.
Okay, we don't have the technology for type 3 fun yet.
It could be a creative type of fun. It could be... I don't find making music fun. I don't know about you, but I find coming up with musical ideas to be fun, but executing them to a sufficient degree of lacking lameness is very not fun. That could be type 3 fun. Like once it's done and I think it's sat out there in the world for a long time, then you go back to it and listen to it, then it's type 3 fun.
Type 3 fun?
Yes.
Oh,
it's
man.
not fun while it's happening.
I somehow missed the entire explanation of what type 3 fun is. I just can't, it's not possible for me to hear what it is.
You've probably encountered it way too often. Do you enjoy recording your music?
No, I do not. Everything I do, I tend to sit down in the seat and I open up a project and I say, okay, I got to do this right now before I can get back up out of this seat. I don't want to have to take a break. I don't want to save the project and close it because the files might disappear. The files might explode, or the project could become corrupt. The plugins could disappear and scramble up, and the music will be gone. So I often have this anxiety of like, I need to sit down right now in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 hours and finish exactly what I'm starting right now. Before I get up to go to the bathroom or get a drink.
So you have a concrete endpoint for your work in a given session.
Yeah, like I had to write a podcast musical theme a couple nights ago, or was it last night? It was last night. I realized this is the only chance I will have to write this is right now, tonight, to finish this thing before I go to bed, because the rest of my week is full of stuff, and I got to go to a convention on Friday. I got to do this podcast theme right now. Holy shit. So, boom, open up the document. All right, I got to start writing. I got to compose. What's it going to be? Start doing it, and then try to not get up out of the seat until it's mastered and done. Of course, I failed because it took me 3 or 4 hours. And I had to get up and go to the bathroom a few times.
But having that concrete goal is that's a good thing.
I don't enjoy doing it. I don't enjoy the process.
So it's kind of type 3 fun. You don't
I wish I didn't have to do it.
Yeah, I feel exactly the same way. I feel like the ideas are just kind of like a burden, and even fleshing them out into full songs sometimes isn't fun. So,
like, I feel like I'm at a point in my creative process, as Devin Towns would say, my process all the time. It's always about the process. I have a lot of confidence in my creativity for the most part. Sometimes I'm unsure, but mostly as long as I have the requirements of what I need to do, I can sit down and I can execute exactly what that thing is and what it needs to be according to the specs. And that's kind of how I work.
That's very engineering-y.
Yeah. It makes it easy for me to execute a project as long as I can sit there in the seat and keep doing it for 4 or 5 hours, and then it'll be done. I feel like there's kind of like no limit to the amount of things that I can sit down and do. It's just a matter of picking one of them and doing it, like recording the Waffle Apocalypse song is like, okay, I need to fill 30, 35, 45 seconds, whatever it is, with this idea. Now let's work on that thing, execute it, done, move on next to the video editing. And it's just this series of programming. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
I think you have more of a chaotic process, maybe.
I do. It's much less structured. My strategy is to actually leave the project open on my computer all the time. It's basically open 24/7.
Oh, man.
And
That's stressing me out.
I'll usually only work on it first thing in the morning before I go to work. just open it while I'm having
In the kitchen.
having my first 2 cups of coffee before I go to work.
You're known for recording in your kitchen.
Yes, I don't know why.
Wasn't there someone who stole your idea and started doing kitchen music videos?
Who did a kitchen music video and stole my idea?
Or maybe you stole their idea and I was thinking of their thing.
Oh, I posted something about this on Weezer. They put out a music video where the drummer was wearing a chef's hat.
Oh.
And for some reason, I took a bunch of photos of myself wearing a chef's outfit back before I released the song Translational Frames, which the lyrics have a lot of culinary references.
Okay.
I'm not a chef, and I can't really cook very well. But
because you haven't become obsessed with that yet.
Yeah, I'm preventing myself from becoming obsessed with any more things, because if you do that, you go off the rails and you lose your yeah.
Well, what are some other? Wait, did we finish up that topic? Because I don't want to stray too far off of this.
Of the Type 3 fun.
Oh, Type 3 fun. I still don't understand what that is. You said a moment ago you keep your document open.
Yeah.
And you work on it in the morning in your kitchen. And so continue that thought.
Yeah, so I guess my hypothesis there is that usually the hardest part of starting to work on a project is opening it up and getting ready to actually work on it. So,
that's interesting.
So I try to make that as easy as possible. I use Reaper as a DAW now. I leave Reaper open 24/7.
I wondered what that was that you use. I see screenshots sometimes, I think.
Yeah,
okay.
I like them from it's a very stable application, and their licensing is extremely fair. So I really like Reaper.
Are you sort of an open source person?
I am. I do some software development. Well, I do software development for work, and I also do some as a hobby, some open source contributions when I have time once in a while.
Okay.
So I think that's an important thing. Reaper is not open source, but it is fairly licensed.
Okay. What does that mean?
It means they don't charge high prices for the licenses. I think a personal license is something like $50 or $60, and you get free upgrades up through, I think, 2 major versions or 1 or 2. Like I said, it's extremely stable, and it can run on Linux, which I don't do at the moment. But if I could someday, I would record on a Linux machine.
Well,
leaving the project open,
the project file open at all times.
Someone told me one time about writing their thesis or something in grad school that you just got to open it up and take a look at it. And I think that's true with music as well. You open the project, and even just pressing play and listening to what you have so far will give you some stuff to work on.
That's a really good point, because I do a ton of my writing as far as screenplays and things like that. I write a lot in Evernote on my phone, or I write in my app called Things on my iPhone. And that allows me to, if I drive my wife over to somewhere and on an errand and she needs to run into a store, I can sit down, pop open a script, and just look at it for a moment and go, oh, I should have used that word there. And then suddenly I'm into writing mode.
Yeah, you just have to make it as easy as possible to start working. And I'm finally actually getting into a decent routine of being able to spend a decent amount of time on music within the past, 6 months or so. That's been part of getting those habits into place.
Once again, I'm sorry to interrupt this deep conversation, but it's time to listen to another piece of music straight out of the brain of Pete Peterson. Travis Orbin on drums again, and this is from the track called Cliff Walker. Now, I don't know who Cliff Walker is, but he must be in a lot of pain after all this Type 3 fun.
Wow, an excuse not to dream this goose. Easy ozone to ear signal takes on some strange control.
Also spend time optimizing wind turbines.
Yes.
Is that correct?
That is correct. That is my day job. Writing software to analyze.
Oh, you write software to analyze wind turbines to optimize them.
Yes, to help them capture more energy and live longer lives, and get us more electricity. And they're existing wind turbines. They're not wind turbines that are in the factory.
Type 3 wind turbines?
No, they are Type 1. They
Type
are
1.
Existing wind turbines having fun in the moment.
So you don't physically go up to a wind turbine and say, hey, wind turbine, I'm going to climb up on a ladder or climb up the side of you and look at you and optimize you.
No. I climbed a tower one time. And
Just once?
That was pretty crazy. Yeah, I spend most of my time sitting in front of a computer, but I did climb a tower one time, and that was pretty intense.
Would you take your bicycle to the top of the wind turbine?
And
is there some sort of connection here between bicycling, the circular motion, creating a sort of a wind turbine in a way? I don't know if that really is a wind turbine, or going up to a wind turbine, or Pete Townsend of The Who.
Sometimes a bicycle wheel will sort of act like a wind turbine if you have it on the back of your car and it gets spinning. Sometimes the wind coming off the back of your car will keep the wheel spinning. And what were we talking about Pete Townsend for?
He does that windmill thing.
Oh, yeah.
On the guitar. Do you do that in the kitchen?
I don't. I would probably hit something. I don't have enough space for that. But yeah, all three of those things are powered by human energy as the prime mover. Actually, wind turbines are not. They're powered by the wind. So
well, they could be well, yeah, you're right.
They all derive from solar energy, though. Really?
But doesn't everything?
Yeah.
Is that true?
That's the commonality. Humans eat.
Is it true that everything? No, not everything comes from solar energy, or does it?
Well, except for
all life.
Nuclear reactions, I suppose.
Nuclear reactions don't come from that?
The energy present inside atoms of uranium was not put there by...
How did you learn about energy and turbine? How did you even get into that?
That's what I went to school for. I went to school for mechanical engineering.
Mechanical engineering is what it's called.
Yeah. Specialized in fluid mechanics in grad school, which...
Thing that Dick Cheney once said about fluid. I'm sorry. The situation is fluid.
Dick Cheney said that?
Yeah, the situation is fluid. That's how he said it.
I have a feeling that he's not an expert on fluids, but he's probably an expert on waterboarding or something.
Jesus. You were talking about urban sprawl. Is that the term?
Yeah.
No. Yes?
Yeah. Urban or suburban sprawl, I don't know.
What's that about? You talked about coming to LA, you talked about grocery stores and cars.
Yeah, it's the MO of development when you're thinking in a
modus operandi.
When you're thinking in a car-centric way, you will design a place to be sprawled out, where you don't have dense housing and you basically have all of your citizens rely on driving their cars significant distances every single day to do normal tasks, which is a bad idea if you're thinking in terms of energy security, and I would even argue in terms of social cohesiveness.
I have to agree with you. I hate cars. We're sitting on one right now. Thankfully, it is not exploding after I just insulted it. This idea of you want people stacked more vertically on top of each other as much as possible.
That's usually the direction that you have to go, yeah.
Instead of spreading them out all over LA, you would maybe like LA to be one tall building in the center of...
Maybe a couple.
A couple of very tall buildings.
My dream would be, imagine this. Imagine the center of the city has... They don't have to be very tall buildings, but, 6 stories, let's say. Lots of 6-story buildings.
Pete, by the way, Pete came out here from Boston. He rode his bicycle from San Francisco to Los Angeles. We're now talking here in Hollywood, and we're talking about how Los Angeles is spread out very far and that you need a car to do everything. Go back to what you were saying.
And because of that, people are suffering every single day in traffic, which has...
It makes no sense.
It has psychological and environmental consequences.
Yeah.
So anyway,
This sounds a lot like my War on Fun declaration.
yeah, actually, there's a pretty cool podcast called The War on Cars that I discovered recently, and
Okay.
I consider myself a bit of a foot soldier. I actually worked for a car company for a while.
Okay.
And cars were the main reason that I even got into engineering in the first place. So I used to really, really love cars. But anyway, my sort of dream for how the world could be is a very dense urban core, and then, you know, you have farmland outside.
What does that
of
mean,
them.
a dense urban core?
It means people living in close proximity with
Stacked
businesses.
vertically.
Stacked vertically on top of businesses.
Tall buildings.
Multi-use zoning. Tall buildings, relatively tall buildings. Like I said, they don't need to be skyscrapers, but dense enough to where you can walk to a grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of like the litmus test for if you have good development, if your place is properly zoned, if most citizens can walk to a grocery store. And then outside of that, either farmland or just preserved forest. I mean, that would be kind of cool. And they're all linked together with rail.
Back to planning the future.
Yes, hopefully the future is dense and doesn't force everyone to own a car.
My theory was that you have a bicycle, which is a very efficient machine. It's very lightweight. It doesn't even weigh as much as us, right?
Right, yeah, it's only around 20 pounds or so.
Yet it can move us from one place to another very efficiently. A small motorcycle, still pretty efficient and light. Suddenly we make the jump to a car, which makes no sense to me.
Yeah, especially when
the weight ratio, like so much of the gas is used to move the car and the gas.
Yes. Cars are very, very heavy compared to motorcycles and bicycles, of course. And yes, they are faster and they're more comfortable, but when you're trying to move a bunch of people along a stretch of road, you have a lot of people that are in these big cars just themselves. So it's a waste of space. And then when you get to your destination, you have to put the car somewhere. So
there's a car alarm going off right now.
I think we offended a car.
Yeah, it's yelling. And then we end up having these like 6,000-pound cars with one person in them that weighs 100 pounds or 150 pounds.
Designed to protect the occupant and not anyone that the car might encounter in some sort of collision.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that brings up another point of trying to navigate the licensing process. I sort of think that they will almost let anyone get behind the wheel. It's not very strict. It's not very difficult to get a driver's license. And, you know, we have people operating these heavy machines. And I don't know. Am I taking this too seriously? Are we being too serious on this podcast? This is a topic that is maybe a downer for some people.
No, I don't think that it's a downer at all.
I feel like it riles up people's emotions, myself included.
Cars?
Yeah. People trying to
because you're not feeling that way because you're protective of cars, but other people seem to identify with their cars. Like, this car represents me.
Yeah, and I totally relate to that. I mean, I spent most of my youth like building car projects, like swapping out engines and axles and things like that. So I know what it's like to care a lot about a car, which is strange.
Well, I can maybe feel that way about a guitar, but not maybe it feels okay to be that way about a guitar, but about a car, I just feel like I think they're way too expensive, they're way too inconvenient.
Yeah.
It's absurd that it costs you so much. Of course, houses are an absurd cost as well. Just housing and cars, how can it possibly cost that much?
Yeah. And if you set up a society where you can free people from needing cars, people who are into equality of opportunity, you can imagine that, you know, your gateway into economic viability is no longer held back by owning this $20,000, $30,000 machine to get you to go be productive at a job. If you can take public transit or ride a bike or walk to work, you know, you have more opportunity and it's a more equal opportunity for you. So it's a bit of a social justice thing as well.
About music, I don't recall, but I remember your name being around in my sort of circle for quite a long time. Like maybe you messaged me or bought some of my records way back. Is that true?
Yeah, I think so. Back in the MySpace days, and then probably the early Facebook days as well.
Did you ever use a cat as your icon?
Did I ever use a cat as my I don't think so.
So you weren't the person that had like a cat with like a watermelon on top of its head?
No, I don't think that was me.
Okay.
Must have been the other Pete Peterson.
It might have been.
There actually are quite a few. There's a Pete Peterson apparently that has an E for the instead of an O in the Peterson. Peterson. He's some sort of jazz musician, probably much better than me at everything musical.
But what brought us together originally? What was the thing? Like some similar stuff?
Yeah, it was YouTube actually. I found the old Sir Millard Mulch were those fake Ibanez promotional videos?
Mm-hmm.
Fake Ibanez promotional videos.
Because when Ibanez won't give you a deal, you just say, well, I'll make my own deal.
Yeah. And
with Ibanez, without their permission.
And it happened to include Morgan Ogren, who I found out about via Meshuggah, of course, listening to Frederick Thorndahl's Special Defects.
Yeah.
And then watching Morgan Ogren videos on YouTube. The one that he did with Frederick on the Trum Show, I must have watched thousands of times or something like that.
It's interesting that someone like that can make a video and you and I will have grown up watching it. And it would have been so important to us.
Yeah. And then it leads to something like sitting in a car talking into a microphone about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like very chaotic that led to me buying the Sir Millard Mulch album. And then from there, I had never listened to Mr. Bungle before. And then I listened to Mr. Bungle because of the Mr. Bungle references on the Sir Millard Mulch album. And then, that influenced me a lot, and I ripped off a lot of their style and
But how would
aesthetic.
you say you ripped off their style? What does that mean?
I don't know if I necessarily made music that was exactly like Mr. Bungle's style, but I think the genre blending type of stuff that they
sort of
did.
genre hopping, like the verse is reggae and then we go into metal.
Yeah, I
kind of thing.
Yeah, before the Pete Peterson project, the band that I had before was a little bit more blatant about that. I try not to just jump between genres. I think like that is kind of gimmicky at this point in time.
Yeah.
And it is kind of like a Mr. Bungle ripoff, where Mr. Bungle was like basically, I feel like, flipping off the audience a lot of the time.
Oh, yeah, just torturing the audience. And that's what gave me glee.
Yeah.
Being in the audience that they are torturing.
Yeah.
And hearing the people around me getting frustrated was like, it made me feel, I enjoyed that so much to sit there and experience that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like battling against the normies or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really like the irreverence of Mr. Bungle, and Mike Patton did that a lot with Faith No More too. And yeah, that punk vibe.
I tried to ask them about that, both Trey and Bear McKinnon. I asked them in interviews, like, what caused you guys to go out and do that? I think a lot of people who may have grown up in LA or something and gone to MI, and you try to get a record deal and you try to do this traditional path of like, please like me and we want everybody to like us, which I understand. What makes a kid who's 18 years old get a record deal to Warner Brothers and then go out and just torture the audience on their first tour? Like, who has the balls to just insult their audience, like trying to clear the room, you know?
Possibly revenge. But I don't know. I think my motivation for wanting to do what they did is probably more from like realizing that I couldn't be good in a traditional sense of like, I'm going to be good at what everyone else does. I'm just going to do it the best. I, figured out that that's not possible for me. I either don't have the talent or the work ethic to get to the top of music in a traditional way. So you can do it in an irreverent way and kind of be cynical and not take it seriously. And, that can make a good statement as well. Because at the end of the day, as long as you just have people that you're communicating with through what you're doing, you're successfully arting.
Successfully arting.
It's kind of, I guess, angry revenge.
Do you feel like you're reaching a correct audience with what you're doing? Do you feel visible?
I think I have a very small audience, maybe like 6 people. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really think about what the audience is, how small they are. I appreciate having an audience at all, which I owe a lot to Travis for that and his platform. But at the end of the day, I'm just making what I feel like I want to make, or just carrying out the ideas, the list of ideas. And yeah, I don't know. People definitely don't like all of it. So
how far out do you think your ideas extend, as far as if you were to have to write them all down? How long would it take you to do them all that are on your mind right now?
I have, let's see, 4 more songs to record that like are pretty much fully conceptualized, but I also have a list of ideas, like musical concepts, ways to compose, things like that I would like to mix in. And who knows, I'll try to mix those into the songs as they get made, because just because they're conceptualized doesn't mean they're actually fully written, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure.
I know what the riff is going to kind of sound like. I don't even know the timing. I don't know exactly what the melodies are going to be. I don't know the vocals, but the song already has somewhat of a identity.
Yeah, I think that over time, at least what I notice is that as people become better musicians, they can think in larger chunks. I've gone past the point now where I think much in songs, and I now think in like albums and like groups of albums. And that's where you start to get like, well, if I can already have 5 albums in my mind, maybe I need to improve the format and make one really good album instead of 5 albums.
Yeah. I think you also need to be a little bit cautious about, at least this is one of my own fears, about over processizing the creative process and getting to a point where making music is routine and like you know exactly what you need to do every time, because I think you need to always be on the verge of not knowing what you're doing in order to get something new and fresh. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Unless you're trying to be that person who is the top of the top, you don't really have to do anything necessarily weird or different. You just have to do really well, kind of like the Olympics or something. Always being on the verge of being a dilettante.
Mike Stone, I don't know what a dilettante is. Please text me and let me know. Thank you. It was enjoyable sitting in my car with you and getting to chat about this stuff. We're going into about an hour at this point. We have 21 hours and 54 minutes to go. So let's move on to the next topic, which is ending this episode.
Yes. Do you have some sort of special way that you end podcasts?
I usually just say bye. But I wanted to just... I think it's nice at the end when you say, okay, to find out more about this young man named Pete Peterson. How do we do this?
So if you go to my website, petep.me, there are links to Instagram and Facebook and all that good stuff. I even have a GitHub account for my website is open source if you'd like to copy it.
You can have your very own Pete Peterson website.
Yes, that's right. So yeah, I'm probably most active on Instagram.
He's a very adept guitarist, folks. I've seen his videos of him playing guitar. He's adept. He does it in his kitchen.
Yeah, I want to use my guitar as like a cutting board someday in a video or something too. So look out for that on YouTube.
Look out for that on YouTube. Was there anything else that you wanted to say or talk about?
No, just it's great to talk to you and finally meet you, and thanks for having me on the podcast.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, that's the end of this episode of the Carl King Podcast. Remember to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Music, or anywhere else you listen to these dang podcasts. And support the creation of more episodes by joining my Patreon for $1 or $5 a month. That's patreon.com/Carl King. And as always, special thanks to my $51 a month patrons at the special illusionist level, Chubode and Hank Howard III. And thank you to all of the very good friends of Carl King for listening, and I promise I will clairvoyantly look directly into your mind in next week's episode.